Hello and welcome to episode 410 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now coming up on today's episode, I'm joined by Fran Healy from the incredible band Travis. On today's interview, we have a whole history of the band to discuss, and without spoiling it, we've got some history, me and Fran, so you'll find out exactly what that is on today's interview. We also talk about the band's brand new album, LA Times, which is out now. And as you're listening to this, the band are currently halfway through a UK tour. There are a few dates left, a couple of tickets left, I think, for probably 2 of the shows. So go and grab a ticket and go and check out this awesome band. The band are on their 10th album, which blows my mind. And they're just awesome. I have a lot of time, a lot of respect for Fran, and I absolutely adore today's interview. And that's going to be coming up in just a couple of minutes' time. But before we get there, I always like to use the intro for every episode of Mark and Me to quickly touch base and talk about my last episode. It only came out 2 days ago, and I was joined by the wonderful Lorraine Bracco. We got to talk all about Sopranos, we got to talk about Goodfellas, and so much more. And I'm so grateful to everyone that took the time to listen, who have shared it on social media. It really goes a long way, and I do appreciate each and every one of you. Now, before I get to today's interview with me and Fran from Travis, let's give a shout out to the sponsor of Mark and Me, Vice Press. There's still just time to order yourself or someone you love a great Christmas present from these guys. Head over to vicepress.com and order yourself some collectibles, licensed prints, or some incredible gifts, because all of it is official, it's licensed, and they have something for everyone. And the good thing about Vice Press is, if you use the discount code MarkandMe10, you're going to get yourself 10% off your first purchase. So it's really a no-brainer. Right, now that's all done, I want to get straight to today's interview because I'm so proud of it, and Fran is a great guest and I can't wait for you to hear it. So, here's me and Fran Healy from Travis talking all things music.
Why does it always rain on me? Is it because I lied when I was 17? Why does it always rain on me? Even when the sun is shining, I can't avoid the lightning. Oh, where did the blue sky go?
So Fran, welcome to the Mark and Me podcast.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm kind of a little bit jet laggy today. I flew in from. I'm not living in LA at the moment. We've been there for 7 years, and sometimes the jet lag is fine, and then other times it's just I do not know where I am. I'm falling asleep at 6, waking up at 10 o'clock at night, like 6 at night, waking up at 10, staying awake until 7 in the morning, then waking up at like today at 10. Under like my son phoned me up today and woke me up. I didn't know what day it was. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to meet Mark. So I'm awake though. But
Well, that's good. That's a hell of a good start already.
I think it's like it's like it's like when you've got a certain kind of jet lag. It's nice. You're kind of in this nice dreamy place, so you'll get probably quite nice answers.
What's really good is, well, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I got married a couple of years ago and my wife has 2 beautiful little dogs, but it does mean that we never go on any flights anymore at all. So
You can't take them on the flight. Everyone takes their dogs on their flight.
I know, but we've got Florence who's now 17 and Billy that's 16. And I think
All right.
these 2 little ladies that are just in their retirement, I don't want to be dragging them on big flights and stressing them out. So
Engine drive.
no jet lag for me.
Yes.
What I do, Fran, with all guests that come on, I love to take it right back to the very start, and it's a bit of a trip down nostalgia lane, but I'm always intrigued what kind of sparked it all for you. And I think, especially with musicians and songwriters, growing up as a kid, can you remember that first album that you were given, or maybe you saved up your pocket money and bought, but that first introduction, and maybe you still remember it to this day, that just made you fall in love with music?
Um, there's loads of little tiny moments. The big moment was Christmas. I don't know how old I was, maybe 11. So it would have been Christmas 84, or 85, or it was round about then. And my uncle who worked at the on the oil rigs, my uncle Bill, only have like one uncle, and he would go away for 2 weeks, come back for 2 weeks. Uncle Bill was like the funniest, still to this day, the funniest person I've ever known. Sadly, not with us anymore, but he uh he turned up. Well, we turned up at their house at Christmas, and my cousin had gotten a personal stereo for her Christmas, and like these things were brand new. It wasn't a Sony Walkman; it was like a Sanyo Walkman,
Sanyo takes me back. Wow.
and it had a little black strap on it, little sort of plastic strap. And I was so, well, not jealous. I was just like, wow, that is the coolest present ever. And I just, I didn't get to sort of try it or anything. She was on it all day, and the day wore on around about, so we got there about 1, and I was seeing all these presents, and we had dinner and that, and then just remember just this moment where my Uncle Bill came up with a green St. Michael's bag and gave it to me, Marks and Sparks.
Oh, right. Okay.
So and I opened it up, and in the bottom of it was a personal stereo, the same one.
Oh, that's cool.
He got me one as well, which was a big deal for me because like he was equaling me with my cousin first of all. So I took it and I went into the room, and she'd gotten Now That's What I Call Music, the first one, the first album.
The original. Wow.
It was the year it came out, and I just took, it was 4 tapes I think, and I took one of them and put it on, and put the headphones on and switched on the thing, and on came Paul Young, Wherever I Lay My Hat, That's My Home. But it came in the cans, in the headphones, and I never heard anything like this ever. It was like my mind was blown, and ever since then, I think that was the moment where the taper was lit. And it could have been anything. Oh, it didn't matter. It was just the sound of the idea of the sound in your head, and no one else being able to hear what you were hearing. I kept going, "Can you hear this?" And I was going, "Can you hear this?" Really loud.
I mean, that's a
Whenever,
hell of a great song. I mean, that's one of my karaoke songs. I absolutely love that tune, and the production's beautiful.
yeah, the that was the first musical thing that I was like blown away by. But it was nothing so much to do with the song. I met Paul Young years and years later, and told him this story, and he was really like very sweet about it all.
I love those Now compilations. That's how I got into it. I remember stuff like Charles and Eddie and stuff like this. And
Would I lie to you?
what a tune! And a lot of one-hit wonders back then, stuff like Cotton Eye Joe and all this. But those cassettes, I forgot that you got 4 cassettes with it because it was a massive chunky. I had to go to Woolworths, and it was like my pocket money or doing a paper round for like 2 solid weeks, even the Sunday ones, which were really heavy, just to pay enough to get these 4 cassettes. And the thing is, it wasn't just a genre, was it? It was everything that was in the chart. So you might have Two Unlimited, then Cotton Eye Joe, then Stilt Skin, and all these like really old school tunes.
Wow, man, Stiltskin. That's one from the old
Inside, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's a great introduction. And I suppose at that point, then you're probably just wanting to buy even more cassettes because you've got this really nice Walkman.
Yeah.
You want to probably ask every Santa and birthday just for more and more. Is that how it kind of started the journey?
Sort of. I would just borrow tapes, and we'd make we I at that point now. Let me see. Did we have our stereo then? My mum got a record player and a tape recorder, it's a dual thing,
Yeah.
and the that meant you could record the charts every Sunday. And so I got some blank tapes, and that was my thing about it. Was weird. I had blank tapes, so I'd sit every Sunday and like was I think Gary Davis was it Gary Davis who did the top 40 on a Sunday on Radio 1 at the time. um, and sit and record all the top 40 songs, like, and try and edit out the DJ, and because he'd always talk over the end of the song, so I would sort of
That's an art, that is. That is, if you could do it just before he starts singing at the very last second of the song and then cut it, I'll tell you what, that was
he would talk a little bit more, so I would like zip the tape back and listen to it and cue it exactly on the thing and make a little bit of tape space and then wait for the next. I got really good at it, so I had lots and lots of tapes of the top 40, and I listened to the top 40 every week, not really knowing that I was probably just soaking it all up, because when you're 11 and 12, I think that's your peak. Your brain is at its absolute most spongy at taking stuff in. And yeah, that was a very magic sort of period.
so. What about live music? So
Ah,
around the age of maybe when you're talking like 12, 13, at Wolverhampton, my parents dropped me off. I was under strict instructions not to talk to any strangers, and I got to go into Wolverhampton Wolfram Hall and I got to see Green Day on their Dookie tour. And for me, that was the moment I wanted to pick up a guitar, be in a band, and
wow.
it changed my life. I was really lucky that my first gig was such an iconic band.
Yeah,
Soon after, I saw Kula Shaker, I think the same couple of weeks. And it was just the reason then I was like, all I want to do is play music. I want to be like Billy Joe Armstrong. I want to play guitar, sing, be in a band. And I was just amazed how free people at that point, because Green Day were just a free piece, really raw, really punky, no session musicians, blew my mind that they could make that much noise. So tight, so I didn't know
yeah,
the dynamics of music then. I just heard this force of distortion on an overdrive pedal and just kind of thought, I want to do this. And I wondered what a great introduction with, Paul Young and all that. But what was it for live music for you? Was it an embarrassing gig that you don't really tell anyone, or was it one that you're so proud of?
no, I'm sort of I'm not embarrassed about. I'm kind of I'm very sort of like I think no one should be embarrassed about anything. I'm incredibly shameless, and I think there is a lot of shame kicking about, especially in Britain. We're a country of like sort of closet shameful, it's like what
That's
this
fair.
this idea of guilty pleasures can fuck off as far as I'm concerned. I think it's like I went my first gig was Owen Paul, and it was an absolute mental. And my friend won a my friend won a raffle at Holyrood Secondary School, and he won tickets to go and see Owen Paul, who was I, I would say a one-hit wonder, which is not. I mean, having one hits any hit is amazing. But he was definitely that was the song that was on the radio at the time. It was yet to be decided whether he was a one-hit wonder, because he was hot shit, and not to me though. I was just like, oh, his brothers in Celtic, which is a football team we all supported. Um, but so we went to the pavilion. We were the only two boys in the audience, and it was insane. It was like a Beatles concert. Girls, like 2,000 girls, and maybe no 1,998 girls and two boys, and we were in the middle of it, and they were like, it was just and the band were amazing. They were fucking so. Am I allowed to swear?
You can say whatever you want.
Great. They were fucking amazing. They were tight. That thing, that thing you talk about. You were talking about the dynamics of.
Yeah,
It's just about being tight. It's like they were. It was like listening to records, but you could hardly hear the band over the screaming of the girls. And I really was not at the time, being 13 or whatever, or I was a little bit like, should we go to this? Because we kind of thought it might be a bit like a girl concert, and by God, we were right. It, but something about that gig made me again. It's there's multiple tapers that light the firework. I guess there's your first. gig, your first record, your first experience of music, your first performance of music, like when you got up in front of people and stuff. Um, and that was my first experience of a live show, and it was just electric.
It sounds awesome. And I suppose at this point, then, are you thinking to yourself, like me with Green Day, I want to get
No,
involved in music, or was it much later on?
much later on, but I did get this the feeling like, wow, gigs are brilliant. Like that was my first gig, so gigs are brilliant. That was all, the message was gigs could be the best thing in the world. And I think they are. I think live music is still the there was another moment. So that was like a concert. But when I was maybe about 14 or something, 15, it was around about the same time I was in visiting my dad at New Year's, and there was a band called the Climax Blues Band. They were like an old British pub rock band who were pretty big, and
Yeah,
they played every year. They played a gig in a pub in Stafford, which is where I was born, and I would go down and see my dad. He still lived there, and he took me to this gig, and I remember standing in the bar. I was just a kid, and they struck up this song, and again another one of those absolute live music. It's like they're playing it right in front of you, and it sounds like records, and there's no screaming girls, lots of drunk people, but they played "Wish You Were Here," and I didn't even know I'd never heard that song before, didn't know who it was by, or I thought it was their song, but they played it like, and it is such a good song, and I was mesmerized. And again, that was another thing where there is nothing like live music. It's just kind of like real magic. This is
yeah,
what I mean, we could maybe go into this later, but I'm a little bit like at the moment there's too much back, in my opinion, too much backing track going on now in live music. So it's
it's
kind of
really transparent as well. If you ever have played an instrument yourself, you know when you're at a gig, there's no way that one guitar is making that much noise without a back in of a synth or a doubled up guitar record that they've just overdubbed to play along to. And I don't know, I understand you want to make the biggest sound ever, and if you're playing in an arena, you want it to sound huge. But I've been to gigs recently. I'm not going to mention bands. I don't want to be called out online, but I was sat there thinking I can hear every bit of this backing track, even when they're stopping to play. I can hear the guitar carrying on, and I'm like, it doesn't feel authentic. I'd rather it sound a little bit weak or have a bit more dynamics in a loss of power, because then I know it's real.
that's the power of live music, is that it's live music. It's like when the musicians stop playing or fuck up, it's like you're in it. There's a dynamic to it. It's not like this.
It's raw, isn't it? It's real.
hmm The rawness of it, and you're in it. It's like a kind of like you're feeling. There's this feeling like anyone could fuck up at any time. It's like tightrope, without a net.
Yeah,
Safety net is not there, and this backing track thing, that's not even a safety net, but it's another one of these sort of harbingers of where we're at now with technology, and the reliance on these things. I've seen bands, brilliant bands, who are no longer as good as they were because they rely too much on backing track. Like I'm like, guys, come on, you can
yeah.
totally do this without without the need for. If you need any more musicians, get them on stage or get them under the stage, or I don't know, put them, but it has to be live.
The
I'm
thing
I'm a
is,
bit.
some of my favorite bands in the world, and one of the bands I've seen the most is Biffy Clyro, and
Yeah,
the
they're great.
fact that they're just incredible, and the fact that they've got a second guitarist for live instead of just having a backing track, and Simon Neil's rig is literally like 4 or 5 amps and 6 cabs to get that beefiness. That's why I love them so much. I can hear feedback. I can hear the guitar slightly fluffed. I can hear the power chord at some point not quite ring through. And that's why I keep going to see them, because I'm like, you don't know what to expect. I understand these huge arena bands that have been polished and got a production team and lighting engineers and studio techs that trigger stuff with certain synth and pads and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, it sounds flawless, but I might as well just put the CD on at home and just listen to it.
Yeah. It's not. It's got to be live.
So, to make this back into context for us, live music is so important, and I can see that we're both on the same page. What was it then, or was it a certain gig, or was it a certain moment that then said to you, I want to have a go at this? I want to pick up a guitar, I want to play something, maybe learn some power chords or learn someone else's music and have a go at it myself.
Yeah, that was it was around about Christmas time again, and I was watching The Last Resort with Jonathan Ross, um, and he had Roy Orbison on. This is like 2 or 3 years before the film Pretty Woman came out, and so he was just randomly on this Jonathan Ross interview show as the musical guest, and he came on. He played Pretty Woman, and I was just sitting in the living room by myself, and it was on, and I was like, I don't know what it was. It was like that was the thing. That was the moment. And after it finished, he did the whole, that dum dum mercy, insane shit like it was brilliant, and he was amazing, and it was pre traveling Wilburys. It was so. I ran through to my mum and said, "Mum, can you?" Or she came through. I don't know what it was. I was like, "I need to change my Christmas present. I want to get a guitar." So we sat and got the catalogue out, Grattan's catalogue, and was like go through it, and there was this Encore, really shit acoustic, small scale guitar, the action of on which was like the highest action of any guitar I've ever played, and I've still got the guitar.
Oh, that's
She's got
cool.
it. It's at her house. It's been sitting. This is mad, man. This guitar's been sitting maybe for, I hadn't touched it maybe for 8 years or nine, maybe longer. And she's moved house, and I picked it up the last time I was there. It was still in tune.
That's insane. I mean, you probably played
That's
a power chord and nearly cut your fingers off like cheese
that's
wire, but yeah.
that's how high the action was. It's still in tune after 13 years. So years and years later, though, we went to see, like me and Dougie and Andy went to see The Simpsons, read through one of the episodes of The Simpsons somewhere in London. And after it, we were all standing outside, and Jonathan Ross walked past, and I
Oh,
was like,
nice.
Jonathan, and I think he's just such a brilliant broadcaster and presenter. Um, but I said like, and I sort of said that I was like, but I want to say thanks because um, your show, The Last Resort, you got Roy Orbison on, and he went into the story that that was a completely accidental moment. Their musical guest fell through that night, and they're like going, right, who's playing in London? And apparently Orbison was playing at the Hammersmith Apollo, the Hammersmith Odeon, sorry, and they asked his publicist, and he came on the show, and he was just like, just happened to be there, and I happened to be there, and that was it. But then you've also got Back to the Future as well, Marty McFly, the whole,
Yeah.
that thing, like that's a big. I heard Chris from Coldplay talking about that on some TV show the other day, and I was like, that's kind of my ground zero as well, watching that scene playing Chuck Berry. Because once I got my guitar, I had this one tape that I would always listen to that I borrowed from my friend's dad, and it was all the old rock and roll songs. And Johnny Be Good was the one song. Then there was the first song I learned on my guitar when I got it. I tuned it all to one chord, and I played Eddie Cochran's Three Steps to Heaven. So I was weirdly in the late 1980s learning from rock and roll songs from the early 1960s.
You picked some incredible tunes too, and I was there. I wanted the hoverboard, I wanted the guitar, I wanted the Nike Buins, I wanted the gilet. I was like, I want to be McFly.
When we got a record deal or publishing deal, I bought that red guitar, the Gibson that
Oh, beautiful.
McFly. And then, like again, I wasn't realizing I was copying Marty McFly, but I've got the big red guitar. Ended up having to give it to Andy because I just couldn't control it. It just would feedback immediately as soon as you. So he's much better at playing than me. So he got that guitar. He still has it. And what was I going to say? Yeah, and when we got our first number one, I bought a Jeep. I bought the black
That's
four,
so good.
the pickup truck type of thing. Uh,
Surely, when you headlined your first festival, you then bought a DeLorean.
I wish I had. I
That
wish
would have
I
been amazing.
I know. When living in LA, you um I there's what was the street called? Well, Hollywood Boulevard goes really, really far. Not along, there's a Hollywood strip, but then beyond that, and there's this one house, and it's got a DeLorean, all like, but it's all dusty, and it's just sitting in their driveway. It's still there
Ugh,
for the last 7 years. It hasn't moved.
just steal it, and they'll never know.
I think it's the one.
I'm gonna come and visit you soon now and just spend a whole day there.
That's great.
So, at this point, now we're thinking you're picking up the guitar, you're playing some great songs. I mean, really not easy to play stuff either, not just your simple four chords of Nirvana. You're playing some real tricky kind of solo-y stuff and some really good stuff there. I'm thinking, at what point do you say to yourself, I want to be in a band, I want to write some songs. This isn't just me standing in the mirror wanting to be Marty McFly.
I started writing songs immediately because I didn't really know any other songs other than this tape. I wasn't really, because I didn't have brothers and sisters. My mum's thing was Johnny Mathis and the Carpenters and Barry Manilow, which are all great. Again, another big touchstone for me was the film Annie. When I
Yeah,
was really young, those songs, like, they made a big impression on me. Um, and but when did I? So I started writing songs, and then I think I I got a job at H. Samuels. Um, my dad, who I visited every summer in Stafford, there was one time when I opened up his bedroom cupboard, and there was a sort of this guitar case inside. And I was like, wow, what's this? And got it out, put it on the bed, opened it up, and you smelled that gluey
oh yeah,
inside of a guitar box and a guitar case, and it smells of glue and wood, and there's no smell like the inside of a guitar box. It's like opening a new pair of shoes or a book, or, you know what I mean? It's
of
like
course.
so. But there is the guitar box always smells that good, pretty much, unless it's maybe 60 years old. It loses its
Yeah,
glue, sort of thing. But generally speaking, that smell remains. So I was like, wow. And I remember trying to play this electric guitar, it, um, and trying learning how to do it, and I couldn't. Anyway, that was that. Roy Orbison, learning like all those little rock and roll songs, Johnny B. Good, Martin McFly. I then had a job at H. Samuels, and I saved up all my money. Got to Christmas around about then, and I bought a Stratocaster, like a Fender Squire Strat, and a shit little amp called a Tiger amp, and then just started playing. And some band at the school, a couple of guys had a band, and they needed a guitarist, and they heard that I had a guitar, so I went along and auditioned for them. And while I was there, I sort of, and to do the audition, I just sung a song that I wrote called Meantime. And they were like, "Do you want to sing?" Because nobody wants to sing at the age of 15, 14, 15. Everyone wants to be the guitarist, the drummer, the bass. They just do not, because singing is like, you're absolutely vulnerable, and there's no boy that wants to do that other than people like me, who I never was that bothered about singing. I never got nervous, and I still don't. And so I just went up, did it, and went, okay, I'll be the singer. And that's then I was in a band, and that was my first band, Strange Relationship, named after the Prince song.
That's a great band name, I won't lie.
Uh, it's a bit shit actually,
I
but
like it.
yeah, but it's a
Yeah.
good song. The
Well, the,
Prince song
yeah,
is great. Um, and then we do our we would rehearse. We rehearsed. Funnily enough, the first place we fuck man, the first place we rehearsed was above the Horseshoe Bar, and that's where Travis eventually rehearsed because Neil worked in the Horseshoe Bar. But this was like 4 years before that, and it was like a rehearsal room. And when Travis was eventually in that room, it was all closed down, and we just sort of got to use it because Neil was a bartender at the Horseshoe. And I've got there was just all the shit lying around from the old business, from the old rehearsal studio business. And I got one of the books, and we're in it like that.
that's
You could,
cool.
yeah, from years before. Anyway, yeah, it was pretty cool.
So my introduction to Travis, I'm 42, so in 1997 I was 15
Hmm.
and I was working at Virgin Megastore, and as staff we were allowed to put on the singles that came in. And
Mm,
as I was doing work experience that week, they were really kind to me, and they're like, "You can put on the songs that you're listening to at the moment." And people were playing Feeder and Bush
mm,
and all these great bands, and I was always playing Good Feeling and All I Want to Do Is Rock. And I remember All I Want to Do Is Rock at that point, I wasn't aware of like dynamics and how to open an album and write songs or anything like that. I was just too as a novice, I was just getting into bands and loving it for being sound and music. And like you said, you just wanted to hear anything. But what I love about All I Want to Do Is Rock is it isn't your instant classic bang in your face
mm,
upbeat poppy song. It's like a long drawn out journey of a song that really you kind of now listening to it again, I really appreciate the fact that it isn't your snappy sing along chorus. It's a bit of a like slow burn to build up this album. And then you go into obviously The Line Is Fine and Good Feeling and Tied to the 90s, and you get those more sing along catchy songs. But what a brave decision of songwriting to open with that kind of huge anthem. I mean, it works so well live, but to make your mark on the industry and be like, we're Travis, I felt
yeah.
that was kind of a different way to go about it.
We were such an anomaly. Travis have always been a bit of an anomaly. We never really fitted it. We wanted not. It's not because we wanted to be an anomaly. It's just that's the way it was. We never fitted in Glasgow in the scene. We never fitted in with Britpop. Somehow, if you compare our records with all the Britpop records of that were releasing at the time, it's very different. We were very much influenced, I think, a lot more by American music than by
Yeah,
British. Although we were, and obviously you can't avoid the Beatles and you can't avoid Bowie and all the Kinks and the usual suspects, but we were sort of very much into the band. I was very much inspired by Joni Mitchell, and I was sort of catching up with music and getting an education, hanging out with Neil and Andy and Dougie. Um, and a lot of those songs were American. And so there's definitely, and weirdly, we ended up recording our first album in Bearsville in upstate New York, where the band, that this is all totally coincidental, but that's
yeah,
when Steve Lillywhite, who produced the first record, he was staying in the the Robertson house, it was called, and we stayed in Turtle Creek, and it was just down the street from the Big Pink, where the band made the album, The Big Pink.
yeah.
And Bearsville is the place where they made the Brown album, So all this stuff, and it's where REM recorded Green, Out of Time, sorry. It's where Jeff Buckley recorded Grace. We were
My
in,
favorite album of all time. So yeah.
and, and we didn't know, like, we had no idea that all of this was recorded in the studio. And it's still like I can go back, I can see, I can in my mind, I can go and close my eyes and remember it. It was so such. I mean, imagine you're on the dole and in June and then in December of the same year we got to go in later with Jules Holland, which was just mental. I think that was in October maybe. We didn't even have a deal, I don't think, at that point. We're just about to sign. And then December we're in upstate New York recording with Steve Lillywhite, who recorded some of the biggest records of our teenagehood. U2, Simple Minds, all that. And we we were just like, and we were recording at Bearsville. So it was like a whirlwind, like exploding moment. We go from like zero to like 100 miles an hour in like a split second.
Back then as well, obviously singles were a big deal. You'd queue up and buy the singles on the Monday. Sometimes bands would release two singles, versions
Yeah,
of the same CD,
yeah.
and you get B sides, and it was good days. 1.99 if you went on the Monday and got this single ready for the build up to the album. And obviously, before Good Feeling came out, and this is where we've got some history. You played at the Shrewsbury Music Hall as part of the Grassroots Rhythm Festival gigs, and the poster was very iconic. So it was blue like this.
Mana.
But
What's
that
the
was
date?
1997 in May.
May 97. Wow.
But so there was Travis and Manor, and it was
And
£5 to get in. But if you look at the bottom there, it says support by Oracle.
oh, right.
That was
Like,
my band.
no fucking way.
I was 15 years old, and my parents had to come to the gig
Oh,
to allow us to play. And I was 15, and we supported you. And you have to remember, that's the same year that I'm working on work experience,
that's amazing.
waiting.
Did we
Yeah,
say hello? I
well,
can't, like I can't remember that show at
I was
all.
a kid, so I'm 15, but you signed a lighter for me at the end of the show
Oh,
because it was cool to smoke back then and have roll ups and stuff.
mhm.
And our drummer went to your dressing room while you were sound checking and took most of your beer
Really?
at 15 years old.
That is pretty fucking good, though. There's a that's the karmic beer cycle. That's good. The karmic rider cycle.
So we are guilty. So you might want to be like, well, I'm not doing this interview for this thief anymore. But at 15, to steal some beer off a band was the coolest thing in the world. We weren't allowed to drink it. I think we had to hide it and drink it, down the field a few days later. But how much
That
of a small world that is. It was incredible. And then obviously your album came out a few months later and you blew up. And I was like, we supported Travis. And they were like, fuck off. I was like, honestly, I've got the poster. I was 15 and I got the whole of the crowd because it was busy. It was a sold out gig. I got the whole crowd to turn around and wave to my mum and dad that was sat in the balcony
oh,
because I was 15 years old. And like, the only reason they let us play was if they came.
that's great. Oracle. So what happened to Oracle?
We went for about 2 or 3 years. We played with Rachel Stamp and we got to go on like Radio 1 tour and stuff like that. But we're 15. By the age of 18, we're going to college or getting girlfriends and then just called it a day. Just didn't bother with it anymore because it was just that kind of journey of just
You
being
got out.
young and a teenager and not caring. And it's just never going to be any more than that. So some went to college and then others went to proper jobs, and we just thought, wow, we've
Are
won
you
Battle of
still in touch
Bands, we've
with
played with
members of
Travis.
Oracle?
Say again?
Are you still in touch with the members of Oracle?
Uh, Only because of Facebook, so liking people's statuses, you know what like happens in life. It's God,
Do you have
it's
the address of the guy that stole the beer?
I do, yeah. He
I'll
owes
break
you he owes you eight
into his
bottles of
house.
Carling
I'm,
and 8 bottles of hooch, I think.
I'm gonna break into his house and raid his fridge.
Be like, right, we're even now. Mark has just made this happen. I hope more would come from the interview than you robbing my drummer. my old drummer, but I think it's deserved. But then the album did come out, and then obviously we had years of stuff like going to V Festival at Weston Park in Staffordshire and seeing you go up and up the bill, and those
Mad.
lineups back then with stuff like Radiohead and Faithless and Coldplay and Muse and you guys. It was just genuinely the best times. It was insane. Those early 2008, late 1990s were just some of the best moments for music.
Yeah, best moments for music and also for movies and also for magazines and books and literature, everything. There was a real interesting flurry of, I mean, even advertising was amazing then as well. Like people were, there was a lot of creativity going around, and it was just a nice time to be in a band, I think, and be part of that sort of that that moment, that little flurry of magic.
Because obviously no one was ever going to sit you down and say, right, Fran, you and your four mates, you're going to have a massive debut. You're going to get all your first four singles in the top 40. You're going to be elevated. It's not this slow, long journey of years, and by album six, you get discovered. It is going to be quite a big, and it's not overnight success because you worked for it, but you were huge very quickly. And
No, I would disagree because
really,
we no, I would absolutely disagree
okay.
because we put our, so if you think about it, like, I mean, maybe to you it was, to the outside
I
it
was going to
felt
say
like
maybe
it,
the outsider's view.
but like our contemporaries were getting much higher than us in the charts, like the people we were up against, like Embrace and Corner Shop and uh, the Verve and all these big bands. They were, we were still, we were still a sort of little band, just sort of kind of clipping the top of the top 40. The amount of money that was spent on our band, it was insane, like by the record company. But it wasn't for, it was tour support. Like
Yeah.
we toured with everybody. We played with everyone, and it wasn't like fancy tour support. We traveled around in a splitter van for a year, maybe more than a year. We played between 1996 and 1999 or 2000. We played about 600 shows or more. Um, but just in this shit sort of setup, and we didn't really like getting. I think our first song, "All I Want to Do Is Rock," was that the first single? No, "U16 Girls" was the first one.
Yeah.
That went to number 39 in the charts. Then next one was 38, and then the next one was 37.
Wow. I can see a trend here.
Yeah, and we were like, do we have to release 40
40
singles to get to
songs.
number one?
Yeah. 8 years later, you've hit your number one.
But the big thing, so the interesting thing that happened is like we there was a lot of money put on the band because Andy McDonald, our brilliant A&R man, really believed in us, and we were the first signing to Independiente. So and he had he had money to spend, and it had to work, and it didn't do as well as it should have, or they thought it would do. But he had an idea to bring out More Than Us EP, where we had Noel Gallagher playing guitar solo and All I Want to Do Is Rock. We had us and Tim Simonon from Bomb the Bass,
Yeah.
Funny Thing. We had us doing a cover of Gimme Some Truth, and then Anne Dudley from The Art of Noise making a big sort of huge orchestral version of More Than Us. And that was the one that sort of tipped us into the top 20 for the first time at the end, 18 months later. But it didn't feel like we were huge. It felt like everyone else was doing a lot better than us.
I think from just buying the Melody Maker and Enemy and just not having the internet and not
Mhm.
seeing stuff like YouTube and Twitter and
Yeah,
Facebook updating you with everything, as an outsider,
it felt bigger.
it felt like we'd play with this band called Travis and they're playing in the shop and I can go and buy their CD and it is in the top 40, even if it's only 39. It felt
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what a debut, what a way to make your,
yeah, yeah, I
you know,
suppose.
because a lot of the bands I was seeing around then at Wolverhampton were a lot smaller and not in the charts. They were just, you know, They're part of a compilation that came free with Kerrang or something. So that's how you discovered them. So from my perspective, with full respect, it felt like, wow, this band's exploded. It was great to be able to go and buy your singles and buy the album in the shop and see it do well.
Yeah, it was the thing was we were unbeknownst to us, we didn't know this, but there was talk in the industry by the end of Good Feeling of us getting dropped. I didn't know this,
Jesus.
but that's why again that sort of makes the that's I know that side of it, so maybe that side of it's a little bit. But Andy McDonald being Andy, rather than because he loved the band, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Andy loved the act, and he doubled down, and you know, we kind of got it away a bit bigger the second album.
I mean, with the kind of conversations I have, I'm always intrigued by the pressure of a second album, and everyone knows you've left your bar, you've kind of set your stall out. We are Travis, this is our album, this is what we sound like. And I always feel it must be tough, or you must feel a lot of anxiety to think we need to now top it. But from you saying today you've never got nervous from doing a gig, you've never got nervous from any show, even though you've done these huge festival headline slots and
Mm.
arenas, you seem like a guy that isn't really phased by it. So I wondered, I was expecting you maybe to say, God, it was terrifying, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but you came back and just blew everything that you could ever even anticipate out of the park, really, didn't you? You just, the man
It's
who
weird.
is the fucking
Yeah,
textbook album of the 90s that just, it's
such a beautiful.
untouchable.
It's such a beautiful record. I mean, the songs are nice. Nigel Godrich, that was the plutonium in the DeLorean.
Yeah,
He was Nigel's, he was at the absolute peak of his powers. Um, and we met Nigel. Where did we meet Nigel? Oh yeah, we met Nigel. Fuck's sake, man. I'm just remembering how did we meet him? But we met him because we went on a NME Brat tour with Ultrasound and Catatonia. And Ultrasound were recording their first or second single with Nigel.
right.
And it was called Stay Young, I think. Um, and they wanted because they'd just toured with us, and we all got on, and it was a really good time. And they wanted us to come in because we had tied to the 90s, and we were all like, "Hey!" It was the glitter band thing, and they wanted us to come into the studio and be like the glitter band and sing rock and roll. Hey, rock and roll. And we were like, all right. So we went in, and Nigel was the producer, and it was at Rack Studios, and that's where we met Nigel for the first time. And I remember, and this is just post OK Computer, so he was hot shit, and everyone, it's like the sound of that record was amazing. I remember sitting in front of the speakers and listening to the what he'd just done and what we were about to sing on with ultrasound. And I was like, I've again that thing where no one still to this day. I saw Nigel yesterday in at his studio, and he was playing this stuff. Still is the greatest sound engineer
Yeah.
producer in the. No one makes stuff sound like that. I don't know how he does it. He's just got. I don't know. I still don't know how he does it. Anyway, the first time I heard it, I was like, "Oh my God, this is." And so, but we got on really well at that, and then he came to the Astoria to see us playing some charity show for a journalist called Leo Finlay, who used to write for Music Week, who wrote our first ever thing for Music Week, but he passed away, and there was some charity thing to raise money for his family. And Colin and Nigel, Colin from Radiohead, Nigel came along, and then we met him at that. And then we just sort of bit by bit got to know Nigel and asked him to come into can you maybe save this record? Because we started The Man Who with Mike Hedges, and it was okay, but it needed this extra something, and Nigel just
It's
was
magic,
like,
isn't it? Whatever he does, I don't know. When I listen to Hail to the Thief and stuff like that, there's something extra. It feels like a Wes Anderson film where it's in music. I don't know what he does. He like sprinkles something on top that no one else has that ingredient or magic that they can use. And I feel like you listen to Driftwood and the guitar, the drums, there's a
Mm.
normal dynamic setup of just guitar, bass, drums, vocals, harmonies, but there's something extra. The voice cuts through more than the next record you listen to by another band. There's just something about it. It's warm. It's got this beautiful clarity that you just I don't know. He's just a genius, and I probably never want to know the secret ingredient because then it would ruin it. I just love the fact that there's only one guy that can do this, and no one else can get anywhere near him.
So we got lucky, very lucky. Um, and Nigel was a massive part of it. And it was very much this nice because he had Radiohead. Radiohead were taking a sharp left at that moment, and we were very much I'm very much into pop and writing melodies and proper songs like chorus, medley, all that sort of. I love that. I love the um what do you call it? Um, the fencing, the
Yeah,
ring fence of that. This is the area that you've got to the footprint you've got to work within and go. And so, but Nigel, with Radiohead going left, then Nigel was working with a band that was kind of like the Travels are very much like kind of beatly.
yeah.
Even the fact that we're the way we are, we're always taking the piss, we're always having a laugh, and Nigel, we just got on so great, and um, we had such a lovely time with him. And yeah, so that album was just like bonkers good. And but again, it was so different from anything else that went on. I remember Mark Beaumont telling us that it was commercial suicide, and I was like,
Wow.
oh fuck, oh shit. Oh,
Surely you can agree with me on this one that you did blow up then. You were massive.
yeah, that went.
That's justified. You were huge.
Yeah, we went to the moon,
Yeah.
and it was like we shot to the top of Mount Everest,
You were no
and
longer interested in Oracle playing with you then, or you wouldn't care if we robbed your dressing room then. You were like, take all the beer you want, guys.
the funniest thing though is that we've never nothing's really ever it did get a little bit wobbly a little bit in the middle there when things got really huge and because suddenly the Dougie put it really well. We made a documentary about the band called Almost Fashionable, and in the documentary, Dougie says that the thing about us was that the friendship was at the core of the band, and the band orbited around the friendship. But then suddenly, when the band became massive, the 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 um the friendship orbited around the band, and it started to wobble and
Right.
and and it took until Neil, our drummer, broke his neck. Not like maybe a couple of years after that. Um, Everything went, and then like 9/11 happened. Was just as we were bringing out the Invisible Band. 9/11 happened, and Neil broke his neck the following year, and that was like we had to come down.
Yeah.
But we had to bring our friendships back to the core of the band and realize that what we were setting out to do was to be the best band, not to be the biggest band. I don't being the biggest band, like you have to give up your privacy, you have to give up all this stuff. I'm like, and I'm quite an introverted person. I don't want to do that. I enjoy my privacy. Um, I wouldn't like I wouldn't give that up now. I like it. I
I feel
like
like
that.
you've always done it with grace and dignity. You've kind of always been successful. You've always had those headline slots. You've played the biggest venues you could have never even imagined, but you've never
Mm.
had the controversy. You've never been the dickheads at the party. You just kind of just done it and just kind of floated along and let people find out the music and do what you need to do and just get the job done. You don't kind of have to have all the drama or the huge
Yeah.
court cases or drama and, divorces and all the stuff you get in the papers. Everyone's just like, oh yeah, Travis are lovely country guys that are very successful and got a great set of albums to look back on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this thing, the tag that got put on us of being nice, this silly misconception of don't confuse nice with weak,
Yeah,
and if you got the closer, like that's what the documentary is about. We brought a critic with us who really didn't like us to. We took him on tour with us to Mexico, and because I'm always like curious as to. I was like, I never understood why we this nice thing, because we're not, we're 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 incredibly normal, and but it's not weak. That's the thing. I think people certainly think of it as weak, but we're not. Anyway, we still getting away with it, which is pretty amazing after how many years now? 27 years. Pretty
that's
good.
crazy. I mean, one day will you have to take the mask off and be like, haha, really, we're absolute arseholes and it was all just an act. We're tired. We had 27 years of pretending we really are nice.
Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah,
is it? What is it? Obviously, I'm conscious of time, but
yeah.
when I've had bands on that I really respect and that I've followed for, wow, over 25 years, Incubus is a great example. Feeder, bands that like Biffy Clyro, people forget those bands have been going a long time. I do wonder what it is inside you yourself that makes you still want to keep picking up the guitar, wanting to sing every night, wants to keep writing, because, there are times you might think, "Ah, perhaps I'm done. Perhaps it's just time to just do other things or just try something else." Or
Um,
is it that you are only here to now do that? There is no plan B. I'm
thing is,
just
I do other things. That's the thing. I do other things. Travis is like a cottage industry, and I do a lot of it.
yeah,
Make videos, doing the artworks. There's a lot of other bits to it. I still am addicted to the finding the melody.
yeah,
Um, I feel like I sometimes feel as though you kind of you go through as part of the process, you go through this, I can't do this anymore. And that's been forever. That's been like going right back to when I was when I first got a guitar. I'm like, I can't, I'm shit, I can't do what how the fuck do you write a song? And then you because you don't know how you write a song. It's like you these things are just, I think there's also this urge with me to connect, to tell stories, and to make people happy. And I think that the bottom line is, would I be, if I wasn't in the band, if I wasn't doing what I do, I think all through my life I know who I am, and I've always been that same person. Like, going, if you rewind my videotape, to quote Radiohead, back to when I was 6, or when I had the same little sparky, little, like, cheeky, sparky, I don't know, just excitement about it. And I kind of stood out slightly because of that. Got bullied because of that. Got got in a band because of that. Got on stage and sung and wasn't phased when I was like 7 because of that. Got in front of a bunch of people when I was like 16 in an art course because of that. Joined a band and sort of thought, fuck, this is cool, and managed to get a record deal because of that. I've been a really good dad because of that, and I'm still doing this because of that.
so never change it really. Just let it be.
Yeah, you got. We saw McCartney playing in the Corona Capital
Oh
Festival
wow.
in Mexico last, well, 2 weeks ago, and Paul is like, he can't stop you just, that's it's part of you. But it's not just music. It's bigger than that. It's and he's if you go back to the Beatles and you go back to you know the album that Nigel did with Paul, Chaos and Creation in the
Yeah,
back. That picture of Paul on the front cover of that album through the net curtains of
yeah,
his mum and dad's house, sitting on a deck chair with a guitar
it's
at the age,
unbelievable.
and he's that. He's still that. It's somehow he's not lost it. Somehow I've not lost it. And most people grow up and lose it. I tend to think most people in our realm, in our business, are slightly autistic. We're on the rainbow, and that's why you don't maybe lose it because you're still like you've just not the chip that makes you curious and excited and excitable has not been has not burnt out, and I don't know if it ever will. I hope it doesn't.
Perhaps it only burns out when you die, and that's why those iconic artists and bands like Freddie Mercury, Jeff Buckley, Janis Joplin, those artists, even if it's taken from you at a young age, or Rolling Stones when it's a lot later in life, perhaps that's the only thing that ever gets in between it ending is just death, because it is part of you that will stay with you forever.
Yeah, yeah. And then the great thing is the songs gonna roll on. Here's one thing, right? I was talking to someone the other day, and there was a band. I can't remember the band's name, but they were playing at Corona Capital, and my son is like, I don't like them. In fact, me and my friends were they were talking about this band on record. They didn't like them. He saw them live, and he was like, they're fucking amazing. He completely changed his view of that act. And so to go back to the beginning to what we were saying, live music, seeing gigs, going to see a band where the guitarist swings his head round, the sweat hits you. I go back to the Barrowlands going to see the Cramps when I
Oh
was like
wow, yeah.
16. Lux Interior swung his head around and his sweat covered the front row, and I was like, oh my God, I'm covered in Lux Interior sweat.
Yep.
This is fantastic. And that's the aura of music. Go and see live shows. It's not on record. You'll not really find it on record. Records are great, but they're like these weird, very asinine, or is that the word? They're very um in it, and they're kind of frozen. They're like a little photograph.
Yeah.
Not go to gigs. Gigs is where it's at. And I'm so happy to see there's lots of really good new bands coming through that are playing live, and they're making amazing shit,
I
and
was
it's
at the
live.
Barrowlands for the first ever time of my life only 3 weeks ago. I saw Biffy Clyro there 3 nights in a row, and it was unbelievable.
Barras
Yeah,
is
what a venue that is. My
oh, that's
God.
the best venue in the world.
Yeah, it was magical. The moment I got there and saw the lights, it was like Blackpool. I was like, what is this? And I walked in, I was like, ah, now I've realized what everyone's talking about.
Yeah, it's the sprung floor the floor is sprung in that venue.
It's incredible.
Under floorboards is millions of tennis balls that have been halved, that have been cut in half. So
I did
everyone
think it was quite springy, but I didn't
it
know it was
is.
tennis balls. That's
It,
amazing.
that's where my parents went to dance when they were kids. Like it's
That's
that
beautiful.
yeah, that's the best venue in the world.
Our time's up, but what I do want to do is ask you the question I ask every guest, and all 400 guests that have been on Mark and Me get the final same question.
What?
And it is that you get to choose the final piece of music that's played after our interview's all edited. So it can be any song by any artist in the history of music. But I've asked this to Anthony Hopkins, I've asked it to Gillian Anderson, I've asked it to every single guest that's been on. And everybody, especially musicians, struggle to whittle it down just to one song. But Fran, I'm asking you today, what's the song that came to your heart and soul before any other song when I asked the question that you would love to be played after our interview is all edited and ready for the world to listen to today?
Um, Tomorrow from the soundtrack of Annie.
Oh, that's a nice full 360 moment.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
Yeah,
Of that is only a day away. I mean, come on. That's what a fucking lyric. It-
yeah, it's powerful.
It's really, really, this is it. And people overlook how great because of it's a musical or it's a little girl singing it. Don't be fooled. These are that's a nuclear bomb song
Yeah.
and it's so hopeful. Don't worry, it'll be okay, you know. The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar.
I'm
Ah,
gonna listen to it literally after this because when I edit, obviously I put the piece in, I get it all, I normalize it, I get the sound all right, and I know that I'll be like, oh fuck, I forgot how good this song is.
yeah, and the movie was directed by John Huston. It's like
Yeah,
absolute eh, all brilliant actors, brilliant singing, brilliant score. Just so good. That film is amazing.
I'm not even gonna start talking film with you because I'll be here for another 5 hours. That's my world. But
Oh, me too. Like I'm a frustrated filmmaker, so like get me on your podcast for what if you have one of those, and we'll talk about that.
I would welcome you back whenever you. I don't want to leave it 27 years until you come back on. Like that's the last time I met you and we robbed your beer. So I think like if we can make it happen not in
Right,
27 years and you come back and we talk film, I'd
right.
love that because I've had Neil Blomkamp, Kevin Smith, Neil Marshall, Mads Mikkelsen, all film people I've been on and I've got really deep on film. So if you want to come back as a movie special with
Oh,
Fran, then let's do it.
I'd love to.
But I'd end up probably talking to you a lot about Wes Anderson, Christopher Nolan, and
It's
Villeneuve.
Wes Anderson,
I
but
absolutely
let's
adore
talk
that
about
guy.
it. I
Well,
see. I've got issues with that, but this would be a good debate to have
yeah.
because we'll talk about that another time.
If you
I
don't
think
like Moonrise Kingdom, you're not coming on.
I no, I
That's
do.
okay then.
Yeah, I do. I saw that when we lived in Berlin. That was, I think, but let's not go there right now
Yes, this is
because
a teaser. This is the preview of what's to come.
we'd be here for another hour.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your time today. Have you got any shows announced in the UK anytime soon? Am I going to get a chance to come and see
Alright.
you guys?
We're about to start our UK tour, and it's gonna be like we're playing. Let me just look at my thing.
It's every single band in the whole world has announced a tour at the moment, but it's December, isn't it? It's like literally a couple of weeks. Yeah, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool,
Right,
Wolverhampton.
there you go. You know where I'm going. Yeah,
Wow, loads.
finishing in Glasgow, and the only two shows that are left are that are not sold out are Sheffield, and there's a couple of tickets left for Glasgow, but it's literally like 50 or so tickets, so it's good. We're doing good. It's,
Wolverhampton, I might come there because that would be like a full 360. It's only just down the road for me. I'm in Shrewsbury, so I might come there.
just get on the guest list. That'll be no problem. Bring your drummer.
No, I'd be like, meet you, and you'd be like, that's the bastard. Give us
Yeah,
those Carlins back now.
yeah.
We want 2 guest lists and 4 cans of Carling extra cold.
What was the other thing? The other, what was the other drink that you took? It was like
Oh,
some
I don't think you can get it anymore. It was Hooch.
hooch.
Or it might have been 2020. You know, the little.
Oh,
You wouldn't have wanted that. We did you a favour stealing that.
you did do us a favor.
All
Right.
right, Fran, thank you for your time today. It's an absolute pleasure. And I'm going to get you back on and we'll do a movie special.
Good. Take care.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for your time.
Silence is gold. Our love is old, and so are we. True love to be lost away along the way.
So there's my interview with me and Fran Healy. And as I said at the start of today's interview, we had history. Yes, I couldn't believe it. At the age of 15, my band were able to support Travis in my hometown of Shrewsbury. And after however many years it's been, 27, we can finally reveal that my drummer, Ben, I know you're listening, stole their beer. So it's a great story. It was awesome to catch up with Fran, and I know he's going to be coming back on to do a movie special, hopefully in 2025, so I can't wait for that. As I said, the band have a brand new album out. It's absolutely awesome, and it's called LA Times. If you're listening to this and haven't bought a ticket to see them, there's still a few dates of their UK tour left, and I urge you to get yourself a ticket. And as you're listening to this, please take the time to share it. Everyone knows Travis, they're absolute legends, the man who was one of the biggest albums for me growing up, so why not just take a second to share the episode? Nearly everyone I know has a Facebook account, and a lot of people use Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, so as you're listening to this, just hit the share button. Put the episode on your feed, and before you know it, more people will be like, oh shit, Travis, I remember them, I want to listen to that interview. They go and click play, they listen to the podcast, they think, that was pretty damn good. And then before you know it, they're listening to each and every episode each week, and then they've joined the Mark and Me community. And that's something that money can't buy. It's word of mouth, and that's how the podcast has lasted 8 years with your support. Also, I've had a lot of support from the sponsor of the podcast, Richer Sounds. If you love Travis or any bands like that, or any band in music, you could go and treat yourself to a brand new Sonos system, some speakers, a record player, anything like that, some headphones, or get yourself a brand new TV. They are the best guys out there, they won't be beaten on price, so visit richersounds.com or go and visit any of their high street stores. Now, as it's coming up to Christmas, I do have a Patreon. If you're thinking, what does Mark want? I would love you to sign up. It's literally as little as £2 a month, and for that, you get guaranteed episodes that are exclusive to you called The Lost Tapes. You get a welcome pack, which includes stickers and badges, and you get a monthly newsletter. And I'm also going to be giving a lot of people, they don't know this yet, Christmas presents. They'll be coming through the door over the next few days from Mark and Me and Santa, and that's another reason to sign up for Patreon. Right, I'll be back in only a couple of days' time with another brand new episode of Mark and Me. So until then, go and see Travis, go and listen to Travis, look after yourself, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
The sun'll come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick out my chin